honor to be here. Today I'm going to tell you about my ongoing research. So it's a work in progress. It's not already analyzed and all the conclusions are not ready. I'm also there that I still probably maybe have enough material for 2 or 3 papers, and I need help to sort of figure out what should be in this paper and not all the other things. So I'll be happy for any comments. I'll be happy for comments on the presentation, but on the content and directions. So anything feedback is good in where I am right now. And feel free to ask questions as I go along. If you don't follow or you don't get what I'm talking about. Today we'll go through a little bit the background of me, but most importantly, the background for the research content. So I'm talking about field re-centralization. We already had a debate in the lunch. What is re-centralization? Isn't that taking it back from the field and putting it back in the headquarters? And no, it's the opposite way, because it used to be in the field and then it sort of went all the way back and everything was decided in headquarters with guidelines, the rules and regulations. And headquarters was big, bureaucratic, and very far away from to the field. And then, so now it's re-centralized to the field. So I'll talk about what is this? What is the concept in MSF? Where does it happen? Obviously in the humanitarian context. But I also experienced that humanitarian context is like, for some people it's very simple, for some people it's very large. And I've ended up making a new conceptual framework, trying to be in between. So we can actually talk about context, explain what is going on in them. So they are a little bit different prototypes of context, but still manageable. It's not 128 different context dimensions, as if I talk to fellow humanitarians. If I'm in MSF, we can talk about how many. It's like in the 60s or 70s of different contexts, and what that means for a project, what that means for management and everything. But it also means that we can never compare anything, because you are always so special and specific that it's never the same as another one. So it's not workable. So yeah, and then I will come to the point, which is the ongoing research. What happened then 5 years in? Did they achieve their objectives? What helped or hindered achieving the objectives? And how has context been important? Speak up a little.
For the people online.
Thank you. Thank you. Not many people say that to me, but that's a good. Yes, my background is not so interesting, but I wanted to show it because I have been in MSF, and I know that's like a research ethics question. You do research on yourself. So I wanted just to make sure I have some different management leadership background from cultural sector, from different organizations, but basically what is relevant is MSF and NRC. But it's 15 years ago, and if anything else, it's not like I'm inhabile, but I've more managed to get access. So it can also be also researchers. Between researchers, it's sometimes maybe also not a disadvantage to not come as a clean slate, but that you also have some understanding of a field before you go into it. So, not going to bore you a lot, but 10, 15, 20 years has passed, and humanitarian context and reality has changed a lot. And you have courses about this, with hours and hours of lecture, but we all know what the Geneva Convention is not respected. International humanitarian law is neglected. Health facilities and humanitarian people are now legitimate targets. Warfare has changed. There are more actors, numerous groups. They are fighting in urban cities using bombs like never before. Don't care about civil population. It's new actors. We have new organizations, even in Gaza, consisting of ex-militaries and some kind of shield of humanitarianism, but it's very much happening at the same time. All of this is complicating what I see as and we'll come back to as the humanitarian context. At the same time, yeah, this probably shows the distinction that used to be easier before between, humanitarian work and development. It used to be clean cut, very easy. It's not so easy anymore. We have this input of the resilience, humanitarianism, and coming in and disturbing here, and also humanitarians understanding that it's no longer easy to just go in and exit and you have done your job and finished. We have learned that maybe sometimes other thinkings need to be there, capacity building, thinking about resilience building, etc. So that's part of it. MSF has also changed during the last 25 years. When I was there, I remember we had less than 20,000 employees. It's 15, 17 years ago. Today, it's 70,000 plus. So it's, 2.5, 3 times more. 75 countries, 24 partner sections, 6 operational headquarters. I think MSF is the first one to have a real operational headquarters in Africa, actually, in Central African Republic. But then we also have 18 affiliated offices. We have different specialities. We have evaluation unit in Stockholm. We have an innovation unit somewhere else. It's getting complicated. So it's definitely a complex organization too. And why did they need to change? Probably didn't need to change. I think MSF had pretty good operations before, but what they saw is that it's even possible to be better. We are not, because of this big modern organization, big bureaucracy, we are getting less flexible and adaptable in the field. We have not so many clever solutions as we used to. So we need to do something to be more relevant where we are and to get away from headquarters and bureaucracy hindering operations. Yes? Yeah. So this was the sort of try to illustrate the change. This is the modern organization. In this case, OCB, Operational Center Brussels. So it's only one of the 6 operational centers, but still grown big, have a large amount of people with a lot of expertise, an enormous HR department, but they wanted to take decision power from here, put it to the project, not even to the country coordination, which is, a normal setup. They wanted to skip the country coordination, have head of mission profiles in the projects, enable them to take much more decisions, even change operational strategy in a bigger extent, and this is the interesting point. They wanted to have their leaders think in a more networked way, on a systems way, approaching the local community and the environment around. And so all the different key people in the management team and others would need to think in networks. They would no longer have a country coordination dealing with everything. They would have a regional support team instead, covering several countries. But their role was not to make decisions for the project. Their role was to advise the project and give coaching and mentoring kind of advice, not to make the decisions for them. So that they get into this kind of thinking with networks and systems. So you're obliged to have a network and a system that you can approach if you need information to make good decisions in your profession. And like all humanitarian projects, you have experts on logistics, admin, different medical expertise, different, you name it. It's a lot of professions, and they all need their dedicated network to make good decisions, and also to make quick decisions, and also to make relevant decisions. So the network means being networked back to the head office, to the expertise, to the regional support team for prolonged continuational understanding of politics, etc., and in the community around you. So you need all of this to make sound decisions and possibly more localized decisions. Yeah, so this is what I basically said. This is the field decentralization setup, but they also introduced dual leadership, which is known in MSF, but it's always been one that takes the last word, sort of, if they are not agreeing. And this was to a larger extent now challenged. So it was supposedly project, operational and medical leader on the same level, which works brilliantly if you get along. And localization. Thank you, Tom, for putting that on the title. I have already talked with Lou, and we agreed that I'm not really actually talking a lot about localization, but there are localization elements in this initiative, especially because this is not about giving the decision power out of the organization to local actors as such. It is inadvertently, but it is about giving the decision making to the field, to people closer to the problems. Knowledge creation will happen there, and people, more national staff, are naturally embedded in these projects. And more national staff and more decision making in the project, when you think networks like this, means that they actually communicate with the local community, and they take in the competence from the local community as well into their decision making, which we'll come back to. Worked brilliantly in this one project that I have. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you basically one success story and some other stories that did not work so well, but we'll stick to the success story and then have some contrasts from those who didn't work out that well. They didn't work bad, but they did not work according to this initiative. So that's why I want to try to contrast that a bit. But in Mozambique, in Beira, I can say it, you probably understand. But the project that worked well came out with staff that was highly motivated, so motivated they spent on their free time, went to courses, went to learning, read books, tried to get into their jobs so that they could make even better decisions because they were empowered. They utilized the local networks because they knew, of course, better the context in the area. In this, I'll show this picture because I was amazed when I interviewed these people in this project, because they were actually basically working on high octane, 140 kilometers an hour, to close their own project and stop their own job while being highly motivated and really going for it. And I've seen some projects close, and it is, of course, quite normal that people are disoriented, frustrated, and demotivated. They're closing their own job, and they're closing something that they worked hard for. In this case, they close something that they have been a part of deciding. They changed the operations from running 1 to 2 health centers themselves into capacity building the other 12 health centers, so that during a 4-year period, instead of running 1 or 2 centers, they moved all the staff from one center 3 months and then trained them in advanced HIV treatment and psychosocial care for kids that had been abused. And then they moved to the next one, and the first one had a weekly update and call. And then every 6 weeks, they went back to visit them with the team and asked, how is it going? And during 4 years, the 14 health centers in the Beira province was all capable of doing advanced HIV treatment, which from before was only one place in the country, and that was one small center in Maputo. And even within this city, it is not feasible that patients from one area will go to a health center in another one because it's too far and it's too difficult for them to move. So having done this, you have actually opened up advanced HIV treatment for people all over this region. which is, I think, was pretty interesting. It was also interesting that they had, instead of one capitalization report for such a time period, they had 8. People went to courses to learn to write reports because they wanted to, because they were proud of the findings and the new things they have done. They had 2 research initiatives instead of normally no initiatives. And yeah, well, I couldn't go on. You get the point. Yes? Yeah. So yeah, this was that. I talked about it. And so, when I probably said already, where is this taking place? It's taking place in the 3 countries down here, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mozambique. Unfortunately, not all the projects in these countries are under the umbrella of field decentralization. So we have some kind of a duality here. So I've not visited the other projects. I visited those inside. I mentioned context. So I just wanted you to know, because I did not understand if researchers and even practitioners are able to talk the same language. And I have now interviewed people all over the UN system and in different NGOs. And I cannot see that we have a common language when it comes to context. We do if we include the 128 different dimensions and then sit down for a couple of days and talk about it. But in a more pragmatic world, I ended up making this. So I want to make it easier to say what is different from one context to another. So I try to say what is the characteristics of the context that is important to keep, not if it was this or that reason, or if it was this or that kind of natural disaster, or what. Yes, we have different setups for an earthquake to a typhoon, but you know, what is the more important is how quickly does situation change? Slowly or very quickly? How complex is the situation? How many different actors and how many different operational areas do you have to deal with? And normally then you have few or you have many. So then you get 4 typical contexts for humanitarian operations. And with this one, I can talk meaningfully to someone who has been in Syria or Congo, or I can talk with someone who was in Afar region in Ethiopia. I can talk to someone who was in a valley in Afghanistan, or I can talk to someone who has been in any one of the many complex crises we have now in Darfur, in South Sudan, on Gaza, well, if you get in, etc. So, meaning stable operations, day by day. Most focus is on routinizing and doing things better. Not so much happening that you need to take care of. Over here, a lot of actors, UN agencies, other agencies, military, police, non-armed groups, whatever. But things are not political, so not really dangerous, but it's stakeholder management at big level. And so many different expertise, different operational setups that you have to have a lot of people in your team that can go out there and figure out how to adapt to all of this. Complexity, leadership theory, perfect. I'll come back to that. Chaotic, all of this only dangerous. But it means something to how you lead and how you run operations. Where is your focus? So later on, I will come back to this, and I need help from you guys, because I want to end up in my analysis saying something about how did this field decentralization project with the decentralization of decision power, how did that work? Yeah, in general. And yes, I will answer to that. But I also want to know, how does leadership function differently in different contexts? So I want to understand, how is context influencing the leadership that you activate in different situations? And I have looked at this field decentralization, one project moving between 3 of these, and they did not change leadership approach. They changed, mixes of the components within that leadership. They did not throw out one leadership approach and in with another one. It's the same people going through all these changes. So I want to understand better that. So that's why this is the research question. We all need to have that sometimes, which is still, if I translate it, it's just what I just said. But I want to know, I want to understand leadership as a context-dependent balancing act between running operations and continuously adapting to what's going on around you. Because I think if I read too much about leadership, Superman this and 150 different things that you need to know and abilities you need to have and skills you should learn. But in the end, we are so different, everyone. All leaders also are different. You have to have individual skills, yes. But this leadership thinking I'm trying to get into is that yes, all of that, we are all different and you have to run your leadership in different ways, but you have, where is your focus and how do you keep these two balances, the balance between day-to-day operations and enabling your organization, your group of people, your colleagues to innovate, to adapt, to get new information, so that we, at the same time that we run operations, we have to adapt to what's going on around. Otherwise, you will never stay for a long time in a humanitarian situation. Yes? I'll show this. How much time do I have, Tom? About 10 minutes. Thank you. So, methodology. Qualitative, multiple case, semi-structured interviews. Now 20, will be 30 when I'm done. 4 countries, 3 projects, yes. Not so much to say about it. But this is the theoretical lens, the one I want to use when analyzing the data. So it looks like rocket science, but it's not. If you ever go ambidexterity, or you have this old really start theory on leadership, that you have to do 2 things. You have to exploit and you have to explore. That's what I've been talking about. Exploit is to do the day-to-day job. Explore is to figure out how to adapt and do things in a better way, in your way. This is normally on an individual level. Mary Yule Behan, very famous scientist within and the mother of complexity leadership theory, has this picture. You as a leader are, of course, individual. We don't take individuals out of the equation, but we say that you have to have your attention to this. This is your operative system. This is your day-to-day business. You have to be operational. In NSF, you are there to run some kind of health facility. So you do that by having routines, having goals, having stuff to do. While at the same time, outside, all of what I told you earlier is going on. New actors, diminishing humanitarian space, a lot of things going on. You need to have an entrepreneurial system or an innovative system or someone who is looking outside to see what's going on, so that you can continuously adapt what you're doing here to what's going on outside. And what she's saying is really interesting, I think, because she's also saying that's not enough. That's never going to be enough. And of course, you can have people talking about how to do things differently and meeting people from other places with new competence, or go out in the local community and get good ideas back. Doesn't mean shit if you don't connect it to the operational system and take some of the new ideas back and actually change this system so you are better fit for the context. And this enabling leadership is something that was inside of myself, an instinct, but I've never been able to put words to it before I saw this. Because of course, there is a lot of things you do as a manager or a leader to have your people believe so much in that their value, that their opinion has value, and that whatever they find out and come back with good solutions to something would be listened to. I'm not saying everything is going to be listened to and adapted, but they have to believe it, and you have to enable it. You have to encourage people to connect with networks come up with better ideas so that we can be better fit over here. And this is called adaptive space. And I think for my analysis, I'm going to look at how the leadership of these projects managed to create exactly this. So, and the analysis is not yet done. So well, what I find is, and this is also not really, everything is not really surprising. Implementation, well planned, and with the due amount of time helps a lot. And including and involving all helps a lot. The success project had 6 months, really paying attention to having workshops, having presentations, telling everybody what's going to happen. And they have invited us to make more decisions here in the field at all levels. What can that mean for you? And they did 5 days change management workshop with the top management, of course, in the project. And they went down and did it at all levels. They did not get through all the drivers and cleaning personnel, but they tried. And of course, not the same amount of change management training and discussion, but at least trying to get everyone to understand what it is. They built networks on purpose in this project that really worked. They had networks locally. They had a network coordinator in the regional support team that connected the different positions in this project with the different expertise in the headquarters. And they needed that because the headquarters is now so big that if you yourself should try to find an expert, it's like looking at the phone book, and you have to go up and down and try to figure out who is the correct one. So in here, they did this seriously. They set up networks, introduced people to each other, and asked them to keep building your network and explain yourself why it is a good one. Yeah. FRC leadership mentality. Believing in empowerment and distributed leadership and distributed decision making, and enabling this adaptive space. That is something that you actually have to believe in. If you send out one of the dinosaurs in MSF, having been head of mission in all kinds of difficult places for 20 years, but very top-down hierarchical mindset, do you think it's going to work? No, it's not going to work. It's the short story, but and they tried it in a couple of other places, and then reverting, starting out trying you are doing something new, doesn't work, so you retract to your default position, which is hierarchical and having control. So that was not so very good for the project. Delegation was for free, and dual leadership worked, not because they really wanted dual leadership, but they saw it as, okay, that's the job, we have to make it work, so we did. So yes. And this led to faster, more context-driven decision-making, empowerment and ownership, high motivation. I think you're highly motivated when you're happy to close your own project and your own job, not knowing what is the next job going to be. And innovation flourished. I showed you some of it. Quality up. This one we don't know, other than it's their perception. Because, well, and that's difficult to argue. What if all the people are highly motivated, working harder than before, having a bigger network, seeking information, doing education on the side for free to make a better job for the patients? How can we say that that is probably not increasing quality? That's but I put it. Legitimacy in the local community went up because local community were listened to. Ministry of Health centers have always been collaborating with MSF, but in this case, they adopted all the protocols that MSF wanted them to adopt. The one on advanced HIV, of course, they didn't have one, but also the new one that they developed together with the MOH staff on the psychosocial care for kids, and even another one. I don't remember which one that was now, but it's not normal that they implement all your protocols and you leave. And so it was quite interesting. And then some reasons for not working, I already touched on that. One was obviously unclear roles between the normal setup and the new setup, because they didn't go all the way. They did this as a pilot. So this was introduced to twist a little bit on the components and then roll it out in the entire organization. But they kept country coordination, doing normal job with other projects. And then this FRC setup had a regional support team, and sometimes regional support team and country coordination did not keep their roles apart. So they had two sections governing them, sort of. One should be supporting, the other one tried to take decisions, and then that was a mess. Yes, I will move. Then I'm coming back to this context matrix, because I think I have interesting findings here also. I'm not done, but what I saw, this one project that had been there for 7 years, started up in complex setting, many actors, many operational differences. So you had different setups. It worked, it went down to stable, but then all of a sudden was a natural disaster. So it was chaotic, completely chaotic. They had to do things very, very quickly and make decisions differently than they did every day in a stable complex. And then it went back down to complex before it came back to stability. But again, what I think is most interesting is when I started this, I thought different leadership approach is going to work different, better in one and bad in one. So there is probably in this setting, it's one leadership approach that is the best and so on. This shows that that is not true. This leadership approach, if you look at the FRC as a leadership approach, and when I have told you now about complexity leadership theory, we see that when you move this project around in different contexts, you don't change the leadership approach. You change the amount of focus you have on day-to-day operations versus innovation and adaptability. And you change how many advisors you can talk to before you need to make a decision. In a chaotic situation, your time is limited, security is high. You need some fewer people to rely on. So you get your feedback quickly and you can make the decisions. And you have more top-down decisions here. And I think the dual leadership model is probably not so good. You have to have clarity in who is making the final call when you have bad timing. And I think if there is one thing FRC should have changed, looking back, I think it's probably the dual leadership thing, because that was so easy to target. So easy to say that, no, it's never going to work here. For anyone who resisted this new way of looking at leadership, it was very easy to take this one part, the dual leadership part. If you scratch that one, this is still a very good initiative. And dual leadership is not necessarily a critical part of it. Yes. So what I've shown you is, I hope that I'm going to look at in this paper, humanitarian leadership as a context-dependent balancing act between the running of day-to-day operations and while at the same time adapting systematically to the context around you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. During this presentation, I think I'm going to focus more on organization, because this is the part that you say we didn't have enough time to focus on. And I'm going to like to talk about a little bit about the localization, why localization, and how these projects can fit the localization, and maybe ask some question where you may elaborate more. Yeah, and a lot of things has changed in the humanitarian sector, and one of these changes is this concept of localization. But when we talk about localization, some people already know what does it mean, but other, it's new, they don't understand. But I had a look at many documents or like the Grand Bargain and so on. And I found that this is a sort of a set of practices that humanitarian actors or these international actors, they use to transfer power, resources, and even responsibility to local actors. With the objective of like improving efficiency and effectiveness of humanitarian actions on the field. And it was particularly advanced following the 2016 the World Humanitarian Summit, with two main priorities. The first one is that humanitarian actors are required to operate in an effective and efficient manner. And the second one is that to strengthen capacities of local actors and support the participation of affected communities in decision making that affect them. So when you present and you focus more on local stuff, because sometimes it's getting much complicated to know who is local actor, because this concept is not well defined. We have, for example, many actors working on the ground. We have, for example, affected communities with their representatives. We have local organizations, for example. We have local governments and even national government. That's why sometimes I ask myself, do we really need to call this localization or nationalization? Because sometimes we get confused. And we also, another challenge is about another concept which is not clear, is about these international organizations where you have 80% of people working in these organizations, for example, MSF Congo, 80% or more than 80%, they're local. Who is now local actor? It's becoming complicated. Is it those people who are working in international organizations, but they call themselves, we are Congolese, for example? We are from this city, or they are those organizations working there, but they are from outside, but they are Congolese organizations. For example, we have from Kinshasa to Eastern DRC, for example, 2,000 kilometers. An organization coming from Kinshasa to work in South Kivu, and staff who are working in MSF, who are from the same village. Who is local? Yeah, you see this challenge. So it's very complicated. And why? They started thinking about this localization. You already said that there is this issue of bureaucracy, much bureaucracy, and less flexibility. For you to take a decision, you want to. I have an example. When I was doing my research in Goma, for example, it was 3 p.m. I met a lady who was raped. That lady, when I asked her, she reported to me. She said, I didn't want to report to any staff here because they knew who I am. So if I can report to you and you can help me, what I can do. So I went to the lady and the lady told me that. By that time, a car was passing. And I went to a car of MSF was passing, and I went to the guy who was there. I said, please, there is a lady here who was raped, and it has been like it was like 3 days, for example, about 3 days. It was like because she was raped, it was at 5, and it remained only 2 hours for the lady to finish the 72 hours. So she need help within the 2 hours. And I talked to the guy, this is the situation, and you are helping this kind of people. Can you please take this lady, go with the lady to the hospital so that you may give her some medications so that she may not reach the 72 hours, because after 72 hours you cannot take this medicine. So the guy said, no, I need approval from Kinshasa. It's a long process. You understand? Are we really doing humanitarian in this situation? Because of this bureaucracy, you need the lady need to suffer, to wait 1 day and so on, and she couldn't hear. She said, no, it's not me to decide. I cannot take her because the time, I don't have time to report this to my office, and my office will send the request to our headquarters. So that's the big, you see this kind of bureaucracy. Second is about this bureaucracy and also this decision centralized. But we have local actors who are close to this field, to the situation which is happening there. Second, they need capacities. But those humanitarian actors who are supposed to have power, to have resources, to have even expertise, they tend to divide the sector into two blocks, where you have some people who have experience and other who need experience. But if you go deeper, you look at what is happening on the field, you see a lot of work is not done by internationals. It's done by local actors, these NGOs, these people, but it's not recognized. So that is where I fail to understand quite well this process, these practices. What is really coming from outside? Is it experience or expertise? Because sometimes we have experience because we've been working in Juba and so on and so on. But when they go to the field, for example, they don't have experience in this sector. So they need to learn from those who are used to work in this context, so that they may mix their expertise from another context with this experience, so that they may be able to work quite well. It's true that localization is based on the principle of equitable partnership. In that there must be respect from all of these stakeholders who are involved in humanitarian actions. They must trust in each other, and there must be also what they call reciprocity. They have to transfer resources through empower to local actors. This is the second principle. The third one, they must recognize and promote the work of local actors. And the last one is this decision-making process. And that is where I see this paper of this evaluation fit in. So I'm happy I read the evaluation and I saw it clear. For example, the term of reference, they were very clear, methodology very clear, evaluation results, they are clear because you show what were and what need like improvement. However, I have some element or some issues I would like maybe you can elaborate more on it. For example, in the evaluation you did, I saw you focus more on the relevance and like efficiency of the program, but less on the effectiveness of this program. Like to what extent are the resources efficiently used to achieve the results? Like what kind of resources are used? And when I talk about the resources, it's not like only human resources or financial resources. Also have these materials or this time and so on. So another question is about the process. How do you draft this project? Yeah, you have a project. You have the theory of the change that is talking about decision-making process. But how did you develop this theory of change? Because you want affected community, you want like to transfer resources to local actors or affected communities. How do you involve them in this process so that you make sure that what we are doing meets the real needs of affected communities? Even the evaluation, when I look at the evaluation, the criteria that you used, and I don't see anything about participation of affected communities, of local actors in the process. This, let's suppose you say about local staff, their participation in this decision making. What kind of question are we going to ask? So yeah, criteria like participation, like transparency, like accountability, they are new, but they're very, very useful to advance this agenda of the organization. But if you don't include them, how do you think this will really respond to the need of people you want to assist?